Hi, welcome to the training of IBM BPM skill set. It's one of the most niche skill set that is available right now all over the world. And now here is something about me. So I have been working in IBM BPM for the last 7 years. Before that, I was working with Sega for almost 1 year, and then I moved to IBM BPM. Apart from giving training, I'm also working in an MNC right now. So I work for TCS. Previously, I used to work for other multinational companies like Capgemini and IBM. So these are the certifications that I have. So I am certified in IBM BPM Application Developer 8.0 version. So then when the latest version came, so right now we have 8.6. So I'm certified in that also. In IBM BPM Application Developer 8.6 version. I'm certified in IBM ODM Operational Decision Manager 8.6 version and IBM BlueWorks Live 8.0 version. The training that we provide for IBM BPM, so this is the course curriculum. So we have a 16 days course, and each day wise we have actually put all the content over here so that the participants can see this and can understand like what are the things or what are the components on IBM BPM which we are going to discuss and implement in our daily session. Our sessions are mainly practical based. So whatever you see right now as a course content, so everything is done practically. Very less theoretical sessions we have, and those theoretical sessions are just to make you guys understand like which component in IBM BPM it works and how it works. This is the course content. So I'll just read out. Day 1 we have the overview of BPM and IBM BPM overview. Day 2 we show the architecture of IBM BPM. It's an introduction to process admin console, and we also provide the IBM BPM standard tool which we will discuss later. If the participants wants to install that, we also help with the installation. Day 3 is an introduction to IBM Process Designer. We create a new process application, then we start designing a process or a business process diagram. And whenever you create a process, whatever components are used to create a process, like we have lanes and teams, and there are other things as well which we go gradually on day 4 and so on. For day 4 we have to understand the business object, the different variables that we have in IBM BPM. We give an overview of the different activities that we use to create a BPD or a process. Looping in BPD, how to loop a process depending on the number of participants in the team. So how to loop a process, that also we do in day 4. For day 5, we come to the coach or the UI where we implement human services. So human services are mainly of two types: heritage human service and client-side human service. Although client-side human service is something which we are implementing since the last 2-3 years, because it is something new and this is something which the client or the customer wants actually, because the client-side human service is supported only, it gets supported in all the different platforms and resolutions that we have, whether it's a tablet or a phone or a desktop. So as a reason, the emphasis is given more on the client-side human service. But yes, we also show how to create a heritage human service. And if you want to implement or you have an exposure to only heritage human services for your project wherever you're working, so accordingly we can also customize day 5. We can give more emphasis on heritage human service. Then we have coaches and coach views. The different components of the UI are called coach views, and how to develop a UI in BPM. So for that we need to understand what is a coach, and we give an overview of the different services that we are using in IBM BPM, like integration services, general system services, Ajax services, and web services. We have sessions on all of this. So just an overview that we give on that day. Day 6 is implementing Ajax service in human services, and it is in the form of type ahead implementation that we do. And then obviously exercise. So exercise is something which we actually start giving from day number 4. So all that is mentioned in day 6, but exercise is being provided every day whenever we are starting our practical session. Day 7 is implementing the human service in BPD or process. Whatever human service we create which can be accessed by a human, and not by a system. So that we implement in our process or BPD on day 7. Then we gradually understand how the data is moving across the different activities in a process. So we have understanding data mapping in workflow. And then finally the exercise leave application. So leave application is going to be our first application which we are going to start creating, and this is the exercise which is being given to the participants, which they will be implementing in their home whenever they are working on this IBM BPM. And gradually we are going to involve all the different components, services, whatever are there in IBM BPM in this leave application process. Day 8 is data change handling in coaches and validation in coaches. So how the data change happens. So if I have two drop downs, the first drop down is the country and the second drop down is state. If I change the country, how the state also changes automatically, how the field or how the items inside state also changes. So this is called data change handling. Validation. If we have multiple fields in a UI or a coach, so if I want to add some validation, so how can I add that validation in the coach? So that for that we need to understand validation. And then finally exercise like implementing data change and validation in our leave application process. Now we come to the day 9 where we understand gateways, the different gateways, exclusive gateway, inclusive gateway, parallel gateway, and we implement them in BPD or in process, and we provide the exercise for them. Day 10, this is the most important, one of the most important session that we have, that is event. So what is event? Different types of event, undercover agent, and implementing events and UCA. We create an application called messenger application, and over there we implement UCA. So whatever we learn in events we implement over there. Day 11. Now whenever we start creating an application, so what we come across is post we have created the application. What we do, we deploy that application to an environment. It can be production, it can be some testing environment. And whenever you deploy something to an environment for testing or whenever you go live, one of the most important things is to debug that process or to debug your code over there. So some kind of issue if it comes, how do you debug that issue? So this debugging, there are simple components in IBM BPM, like we have process inspector, then we have REST API. So we learn all this debugging, we will do all this debugging exercise to the REST API and the process inspect. And how to do it, we'll see in day 11. Day 12 is exception handling, how we can implement exception handling or what is exception handling exactly, and how do we implement exception handling in IBM BPM. So we see that on day 12. Day 13 is implementing integration service. We are going to learn database integration. So how database can be integrated with our process, with our workflow, and how we can implement the different operations of database like insertion or fetching some information or deleting some information. We are going to learn all these database operations with respect to IBM. Day 14, team filter service, understanding difference between process application and toolkit. Snapshot overview. What is a snapshot? Basically, it's a version management in IBM BPM. So we're going to learn that about snapshot on day 14. Creating tracks and its necessity in IBM BPM. Day 15, requirement analysis, mobile store application, implementation of mobile store application. So we have two use cases. One use case is mobile store application and the other use case is personal loan application system. So we're going to discuss on that later. Day 16, that is the last day we implement and discuss web service in IBM BPM, how we can implement web services in IBM BPM. So that we are going to see on day 6. Apart from this topic, if the participants have any other things to cover, if they think that this is important which is not there, so that also we can add in our course curriculum. So accordingly the day also will increase. So today in the demo we are going to learn few things. So we're going to understand BPM, business process management. I'm going to provide you an overview of IBM Business Process Manager. You're going to see the leaders in BPM at the moment. I'm going to introduce you with IBM Process Designer and the demand in market for this technology, IBM BPM. Introduction to BPM. So people who are aware of BPM, so we are good. People who are new, business process management. So here we have three different words added together. So what is business? Business is basically, it relates to some kind of organization. So, and each and every organization has its own business, or I would rather say each and every sector has its own classification of business. Say if I go to some insurance sector. So over there, their business is involved in the insurance part. If I go to some banks, so there are business like personal loan, car loan, home loan, so all the different kinds, and credit cards. This all business comes under the financial sector or the banking sector. Then we move to the automobile sector. There also they have a business on the automobile. So each and every business they need some kind of cost. Every business will have some kind of work, some kind of cost. An example, say if I go to a financial sector or a banking sector, we have say personal loan. Personal loan is itself a process, beginning from the customer submitting the documents, then verification of the document, verification of the customer, approval of the loan application of the customer. So all the different activities, whatever happens for a customer's application on a personal loan, so the entire thing is basically a process. What BPM does, BPM automates this business process. Initially, if I go back to say 20-30 years back, when BPM was not there, this entire process of say applying for a loan or a credit card or a home loan everything was very manual. There was no involvement of any automation with it. And for that reason, what used to happen that the application's turnover time was also it used to become much more larger. So nowadays, if I'm applying for a loan, I would be getting the loan in maximum 7 to 8 working days. Initially, when BPM was not there, 30 years back, at that point of time, since it was a manual process, it used to take around 30 days for a loan to get sanctioned. Now the sanction and the whole time has become much more smaller. And this is because BPM has taken that place and they have gone ahead and they have automated the process. So process of analyzing and improving business processes to create a more efficient and effective organization. So if I'm a bank and if I have implemented BPM, if I have automated my processes through BPM, the advantage would be if I can see that per customer it is taking around 7 to 8 working days to get loan sanction, what would happen? More and more applications would come. And as a result, the bank also would be much more effective in helping the customers. More customers would come. And as a result, more profit will also happen for the bank. That's the reason it is saying there is a process of analyzing and improving the business process. So first we need to understand the process, how it works. Then we are going to implement the process, and we further also we take care of how improve, how to make it much more efficient, which would result in what? Which would result in a more efficient and effective organization. It is focused more on repetitive and ongoing processes that follow a predictable pattern. So 30 years back, if my father had applied for a credit card, he went through certain activities, or his application went through certain activities. First, he submitted the documents, then the documents got verified. It was verified, the customer was verified, that whether he stays in that place or not, whether he really works in that house, really works in that office or not. So all this verification happens: residential verification, office verification, telephonic verification. Somebody calls you up, somebody calls the customer and asks for certain details. Then going ahead, some CIBIL score and all the different credit scores are taken into place, and taking into all this consideration, the credit manager is to approve that credit card application. So this entire process, whatever activities we have here, all the business activities like verification of documents and verification of the customer, then approving or rejecting the entire application. So all these different activities used to happen 30 years back as well, which happens today also. Only the difference is that all those business activities were not automated. Now we have automated them. So as a result, what we can say that BPM actually follows the same pattern. After 30 years, the same process will still be there. Maybe more automation will come. A very small example, which is a very some example which we can relate into our daily life. So for example, if I'm going on a leave today, then what we do, we have an application in every organization, a leave portal, where we log in and we just simply select the date, and whenever we submit, a notification goes to the manager saying that this person has taken a leave. 30 years back, I don't remember that there was any application where we used to go and we used to log in and we used to fill up all the details and submit our leave application. Never used to happen. We used to write an email to our manager. So that's a manual process. And the automation is that you log into an application and you fill up all the details, and post filling up all the details, your manager gets a notification saying that you have applied for a leave. 30 years later, you even don't have to go and log in and you have to fill up all the details. So there will be some kind of bot where we are actually moving towards. IBM BPM is also moving towards chatbots and iBots, which falls under the IoT. That time, what will happen? Maybe we have to just select something. Whenever we log into a portal, we just have to select something. We don't have to select anything from our keyboard, and automatically the leave gets submitted to the manager. So we are moving towards automation, and BPM is taking us forward towards the automation. But BPM will always focus on those processes which will have the same kind of pattern. And lastly, BPM automates the manual business process of an organization, which we are all aware of. Like BPM is automating the different business processes of all the organizations of different sectors, whether it's the medical sector, insurance sector, banking sector, whether it's the automobile sector, everywhere BPM is there. Now we come to IBM BPM. So one of the most prominent BPM technologies, that is IBM Business Process Manager. Now the name has changed for the latest version, that is 8.6.1, where it has been named as IBM Business Automation Work. So we'll discuss about this IBM Business Automation workflow as well whenever we start the sessions, because our session will be based on either IBM Business Automation Work or IBM BPM 8.6. So both are the latest versions. So one is available as a free trial, and one tool is available with me, which I provide to the partner. IBM Business Process Manager provides a robust set of tools to author, test, and deploy business processes, as well as full visibility and insight to managing those business processes. Now, whenever you install or whenever somebody buys a license of the IBM BPM, and whenever they're installing that in some server, in the system, remote system, or in their own system. So what happens is you get certain components with this tool. Some components are used to author and test the business process. Some tool or some component which we use to deploy the business process. And there is tool or there is component through which you manage the business process, like who can access the business process. So a business process, if I discuss about a business process, a very simple business process, say a leave application. Now leave application involves two teams. One is the employee and the other is the manager. What happens over here in this process? We have an employee activity where the employee basically he opens an application form from the UI from a portal, and over there he fills all the details like what's his name, his employee ID, and what is the date from which he wants to go for a leave, what is the reason why he wants to take a leave. Then he will have a drop down where he or she is going to select the type of leave, whether it's a sick leave or a privilege leave, anything. So they provide all those details, they fill up the reason, and they submit the application. Now post this application is submitted, the manager task is created, where the manager opens the task and he finds out who is applied for this and this leave. If he finds that everything is fine, then he would approve or he would reject. So the actioning of the leave application happens on the manager's end. So we make sure that when we create this process, we make sure that the manager can only access the manager activity and not the employee activity, and the employee can only access the employee activity and not the manager. So if I'm applying for a leave, then I would not go and approve my application. So there has to be a separate team who would be taking care of that. So this is called managing the business process. So how to manage a business process? So all these things, if we add, then yes, it falls under IBM Business Process Manager. But each and everything can be taken care by different components of IBM. How to do that? We'll see whenever we are starting our session. The components of IBM Business Process Manager provide a unified BPM repository to manage the business processes and their associated RDs. What it says, like I said, that whenever you are installing the IBM BPM, we get a lot of components. One of the components, it is discussing about one of the components here, which we consider it to be a unified BPM repository. And whenever you log into that repository, you would be able to see the different applications that are there. Okay, we call them as process applications. So this process application is something where you go inside and create your process and the other services or variables, business objects, human services, and all these things you create over there. Tools for author. So we have a tool which is used for authoring the business processes and the services and the other things which we use to, which we actually implement for our business process. Then tools for administrators. There are certain administrative work which we have in IBM. For example, suppose you have deployed your application in an environment. So if I want to see the performance of how my process is working, or I want to find out which service is taking most time or which process is taking most time, I can log into that particular console and I can view which process or which service is taking a lot of time, and accordingly I can take action. If I'm a developer, I can go back to my authoring environment and I can take some action over there. What kind of action? I can optimize my process or I can optimize myself. So there are tools for administrators. Apart from this, there are other administrative rules as well, which we are going to cover or which we are going to discuss in our sessions. Then we have tools for authors, administrators, and users, and a runtime platform. So like we have tools for authors, we have tools for administrators, we also have tools for users. A kind of console we have from where we create the different users who can participate in the process. And yes, we have a runtime platform. Without a runtime platform, my application is never going to run. IBM BPM makes sure that whenever you're installing the IBM BPM, we also have a runtime platform. So we'll discuss about the architecture in detail whenever we start the session. So our first session, basically I'm giving the overview of BPM and IBM BPM. So generally our first session would be on the architecture, where we are going to understand each and every component that we, and going ahead in our sessions, we are also going to cover those components. Leaders in BPM. So at the moment, we have these leaders in IBM BPM. So there are two different kind of tools that we are aware of. So it's there in every technology. So we have license and open source. So under license, you have IBM BPM, we have Pega, Appian, and Oracle BPM. So these four leaders under whatever you see under the license tools, they are in the top four for the last 3 years. We have a report that gets generated every year. That's a Gartner report, and Gartner report comes for each and every technology, whether it's Angular, whether it's your UI, whether it's your BPM, whether it's a database. So for every technology, we have the Gartner's report. From the Gartner's report, there is basically a quadrant which we call it as a leaders quadrant, and these four tools, whatever you see on the license tools, and even for the open source also, there is Gartner's report. So whatever you see here, they're the top leaders in this market, in this BPM market right now, and they are there since year 2018, 2017 end. So 2017 November, the report came out. So over there, IBM BPM was always there at the top, IBM BPM and Pega. So these two tools are there since 2011 and 12, both these tools. Appian, gradually it came in. So it was in the second quadrant. It came in the first quadrant gradually in 2017 end. Then Oracle BPM also came in. So these are the four leaders. Then for the open source, we have yet JSONic BPM, Modelio, and introducing IBM Process Designer, the lab session. So we're going to see some of the things in Designer. So how the Designer looks like, and what are the different kind of components that we can create from the Process Designer, from where do we create the components, and the basic things of understanding what is Process Designer. We will discuss about this right now. So Process Designer is basically the authoring tool, is the primary modeling and designing tool in IBM Business Process Manager. It is an editor that you access in a browser to model, implement, and inspect business processes. Now, Process Designer are of two types. One is the desktop process designer, and the other is the browser-based process designer. So desktop-based, possibly from the next version, it won't be there. So that's the reason our focus would be to work on the browser-based process designer. And the overhead of using a desktop designer is you have to download that, and after even installing IBM BPM, you download that desktop process designer from one of the consoles or on the components that we have, Process Center console or the Workflow Center. So from there, you have to download this Process Designer, desktop process designer, and you have to install it. Even without installing a desktop designer, you can still go ahead and use the browser-based. It is much lightweight and much easier to use. So this is what it says in the last. The additional desktop process designer is deprecated. Yes, it is showing as deprecated at the moment, but still there are a lot of clients and customers who are still using the desktop designer, but they soon have to move to the browser-based, because possibly from the next version, desktop designer will not be there. So we'll quickly go and see Process Designer, the web process designer. Our designer, this is a web-based designer. As you can see, this has been opened from the browser. Okay, how to open this, how we can go over here, we'll see whenever we see the session. We do the session on the Process Designer. So this is an overview. So at the moment, we are actually inside a process application. So let's go back to the Workflow Center. So here we had the button of return to Workflow Center. We'll see that again. We are right now on the Workflow Center, or we also call this as the Process Center. We used to call it as Process Center. So going forward, these terms are also going to change. So nowadays we don't call it as Process Center, we call it as Workflow Center. So whatever you see over here, these are the different process applications. And inside each and every process application, we have the different components that we are using to develop a process. Say we have human services, we have processes, we have business objects, variables, and all the different other components or artifacts are there. Now, if I am working for a project, or if I am working for a customer and the customer has given me a requirement, and by the requirement I can understand this is a banking project, it's a project based on some loan system or some credit card system, anything. So what we do, we come here, we create a process application of it. So we create a process application, and post creating the process application, here you will be able to see all the different applications, and you will also be able to see a process application which you have just now created. So I created this process application today, MindMajix, and let me go inside it. So if I am a developer, then I have to go inside this process application and I have to start designing my process and the other. If I click on top of this process application, it takes me directly inside to this application where it allows me to create the artifacts which are needed for my project. So here, whatever you see, this is just an kind of just giving an overview of this application. On the left hand side, these are the things which are more important for us to understand. So here you can see it says process, then you have user interface, and then you have services, events, themes, data, performance, files, toolkit, and smart folders. So whenever you log into a process designer and you go inside a process application, this is what you find every time. The same you will find every time whenever you open a process application. On the left hand side, you have here process, user interface, and all the other things. And you can see after every component, there is a plus, which means if I have to create a process, I have to come here and I have to click on the plus. Whenever you click on the plus sign, it will ask you what you want to create. You want to create a process or you want to create a blue workflow slide subscription. Similarly, for user interface, if I want to create a UI based structure or a UI, then I have to click on the plus. Then you get all these options. You have client side human service, heritage human service, theme, view, localization resource. So like this, for each and every component, if you want to create the artifact, you can click on the plus sign and you can create. I am a developer who is working for an organization for the last 5-6 months. So I am aware of the process application where I am working, and my team is also aware. Now a new team member joined. Now I have given him the access. You can go inside the designer and you can view all the artifacts which are already created. So how we can view those? So like I am creating a process from here. If I want to view the existing process, then I have to click on top of this. So right now we don't have any process. That's the reason it is not showing me over here. If I had some process, it could show me as a list. The developer who is new to this application, if already something has been developed by the other developers, you can come and view from here. Whenever it opens it, what happens? The list comes up, and if you want to open something, you can just click on that. So we'll see this exercise. So I'm not going to create an entire process. So just to open an existing process, how to do it, and we'll also see how to create a process. That also. So here we have this plus sign. We click on process. A pop-up comes up. It gives us a definition of what is a process at the top. You can go through this. So although I'm showing this how to create a process, but I'll still do it whenever we have a session on process. So this is the first session. As the reason, just I'm trying to give an overview. I click on finish, and as soon as I click on finish, this process is created and now it opens in front of me. This is the process. And here you can see which we were saying, like we have different teams for a process. Like for example, leave application, it involves two teams. One is the employee team and the other is the manager. So here we have something called team, and I can just rename this into employee. Now if I want to add any other team, if I want to add one more team over here or one more lane, be more precise, because this process would involve two teams. So I have a lane which has only one team. Now what is a lane? Lane is nothing but basically it's a part of your process where you add certain activities. These are all the human activities basically. You can add the human activities over here, and accordingly whatever human activities you're adding for a particular lane, the team involved with that lane will be able to access only that. So it is just the same thing which we discussed before, managing the business process. So lanes are basically used to manage the business process. So here we have a lane for employee. If I want to add one more lane, I can simply drag from the right hand side. You see the top, if I just hover my mouse on top of it, it says lane. So I can just add one more lane over here, and I can similarly give a name manager. So now we have two human lanes. One is the employee lane, which would consist of the employee activities only, and then we have the manager lane, where we are going to add a manager activity. So if I want to add an activity from the right hand side, I have this option called activity. I can add it over here. Now you can simply connect the sequence flows like this. So we'll discuss more in detail about this. So here you have the start event, which basically starts this process. Going forward, it will trigger this task for the employee. So I can just rename this as employee leave application task, and this I can name as the manager action task. Right? So this is how you create a process. And now I have created this process. Now if I want to close the process, how can I do it? You have here leave application process. Next to it you have this close artifact option. If I click on it, it will close automatically. Now if I want to view this process again, I have to click on top of this option, process, and I can see this process which was created before. If I want to open this, I simply click on it and it opens in front of me again. So this is how a process is created, and this is how you have to access all the artifacts in your process. If you want to create it, you have to go to the plus sign and create it. If you have to open an artifact, click on top of that component and you can simply open the artifact from here. Okay, so very simple, very easy, and most importantly, it's developer friendly. There are different tools which are there in the market, different BPM tools, but some few tools are there which are not developer friendly. IBM BPM, any product of IBM is developer friendly. So we have used Eclipse in Java, so that is again an IBM product. We have used Operational Decision Manager, which is a rule engine for under IBM, so that is again user friendly. Similarly, BPM also we have the Process Designer, which is again very user friendly. So let's go back to our session. So this is the introduction of the IBM Process Designer, and we have seen how to create a process, but nothing to worry. Whenever we are going to cover, when we come to the day where we are going to see how to create a process, so on that day we are going to discuss about everything, whatever we have seen today in much more deeper way. So going ahead, the demand in market of this technology. So it has got huge demand at the moment, and IBM, which is IBM Business Process Manager, has always been among the top three leaders, which we have already discussed. Customers around the globe prefer IBM BPM because of its low cost, loosely coupled feature, and extended support from IBM product team. So if you see the different BPM tools, like we have Pega, so generally IBM BPM always gets compared with Pega and Atlas, because these three are the top three leaders right now. If you look in the cost wise, then definitely IBM BPM is much more cheaper. And loosely coupled is, it is an advantage that you can integrate any legal system with IBM BPM application. That's the very most advantage of using the IBM BPM tool. You can add multiple systems. Multiple systems can interact with your application. For that, you don't need a lot of configurations. Very simple configurations are needed, and extended support. So whenever a customer or a client, they buy a license of IBM BPM, they get a support of 5 years. Initially they used to give 3 years, but then it got changed to 5 years. So you get extended support, and that support comes not only they give you application support, but also they provide the product support. So if there is an issue while creating some artifact, you find that as a developer there is some issue, then you can definitely reach out to the product. For that you have to raise a PMR, and for the PMR tracking number, you can debug. They will debug the issue of your product, and if needed, they can provide some fix also. Similarly, application based also they provide the support to the client or the customer. Since the introduction of IBM Business Automation workflow, demand is going higher, which is true. So now they have created a product where they have added everything. Where you have the ODM, you have integration designer, you have the test manager, and most importantly, they are moving towards the automation where they're going to involve bots. So maybe possibly in the next version we'll have the chatbots and everything that could become. So that's the reason the demand is much more higher. And business automation workflow, initially when it was IBM BPM 8.6 and 8.5.7. So recently I am working in 8.6 now. I have also moved to 8.6.1, that is the business automation work. So what more you get over here is the UI, which is much more enriched with different themes which were not there before. So your UI has become much more responsive. which was again not there. So all these new features are coming. So they're adding themes, they have added some jazzy toolkits which you can use, and there are certain toolkits which are also there in the market as an open source which you can again use in your IBM BPM application. If you're creating some application, you can use those UI features. So all these things are coming on every version, and they are also upgrading the toolkits, the UI toolkits which are there at the moment. So we have Spark UI or the BPM UI toolkit, which is completely made of AngularJS. So there is no, so initially we used to work on Dojo. So that also has been upgraded to Angular. So that's the reason what is happening, that the strategy is being taken by the different clients are they want to buy this license because of its cheap cost. For this, what they're getting extended support. And the team, whenever they are also working, if they are also facing some problem, and if internally they can't solve that, they can still reach out to the product team and they can also come and help. That's the reason the demand is higher. Certification, so we have the certification available right now, that is C95505112. That is IBM Business Process Manager Application Developer. Post completing the course, whatever course we have, we will be good enough to clear the certification, because our course is mainly focused on the practical part. Although the questions would be coming in the form of multiple choice, but they would be based on the your practical way of implementing. Say for example, they can ask you a question on a business object, like whenever you create a business object, or what are the different types of business objects that we have. So it's a sample question that comes in our certification. So if I am aware of the thing, so not only we have to read theoretically, but also whenever you are creating a business object, over there you'll be able to see what different types we have. If you are good in implementing the practical thing, then you would be very good to clear the certification. So we have the lab setup. So many of the participants, they ask like, what do we need to know before we join the session? So no coding, I would not say that no coding is required, yes, but basic coding knowledge is required, but that does not mean that you have to know Java or .NET or you have to know PHP, nothing like that. You can be knowing any technology, that doesn't matter. But yes, basic knowledge of coding like looping, for loops, while loops, if else, all these things are basic things, and these things are only required. And system requirement, if you want to install the IBM BPM product, which I am going to provide, so that would require, your system would require minimum of 8 GB RAM, and you can have Windows 7 or 8 or 10, doesn't matter. So this version should be there. And if you are using the business automation workflow, for that you don't have to install anything. You can simply log into the IBM, you can sign up for the IBM business automation workflow. You can register over there to a valid email ID, and you would be getting your username, password, everything in the mail, and you can log into the business automation workflow, you can work with it. So that's a 30-day trial. So after 30 days, that trial is going to expire. So make sure again, post 30 days, if you want to create another, you can again create with another email ID. Now this is the use case which we provide in our sessions, and we make sure that by the end of the session, by the end of all our sessions, we complete this, and this application which we create, it actually covers whatever sessions we have, it actually covers everything. So let's see what it says. So personal loan application system, this is a project that needs to be implemented for one of the leading financial institutions, XYZ Bank, specializing in providing debt facility financing to MSMEs and consumers in India. This project consists of one main process, business interest loan, that is personal loan, and multiple child process. So basically there's a bank which has a personal loan process, and we have to understand the requirement. So this is not the entire requirement, is not written over here. So I'll be providing the requirement. Analyzing the requirement, we have designed a main process, that's loan process, and we will also have certain child processes. So we will have different verifications. So for each and every verification, whenever they will be triggered, each and every task will be cleared. So how this thing will happen? So this entire thing I'll be explaining post we complete like services and everything. So I'll be explaining this requirement to you. Understanding the requirement, we have to start creating this application. So by the end of our course, this application gets completed, that we do for every batch. Through that, we actually try to analyze that how the participant has gained the knowledge. If you are able to implement this entire thing, it will actually cover everything. So this is one of the projects where I had worked on in one of the companies where I have worked on. This project was there, and This is a live project basically. So it will have all the database integration, you will have the exception handling, you will have the web services and everything. So this is what we create in our sessions. IBM BPM training in MindMajix. So now we come to the part where I'm going to explain you what things we do in our session. Like we have said, that our sessions are mainly practical based. So we have the interactive sessions with hands-on. So whatever sessions we are seeing from day 1 till the last day, day 16, everything is we do it through process design. So very less theoretical sessions will be there. Implementing live scenarios. So I'm going to give up not only that project, there is another project also which we execute. So that project also we give, and this is a different live scenarios. So even from my project which where I am working on presently. From there also I'm going to show certain artifacts which would help you going ahead whenever you are implementing something in your project. So if you are aware of how to implement this thing, it will become much more easier for you. So make sure that the participants who are taking this course, they become much more comfortable with this skill. Study materials and recordings provided for daily sessions. So whatever sessions we are implementing, so I provide all the study materials and recordings are provided by MindMajix. IBM Business Process Manager 8.6 standard license tool is provided. So I provide the IBM BPM 8.6 standard tool. So if the participant wants to install that, I also help to do installation. Doubt clearing session. So every day we have our doubt clearing session. I generally tell the participants to participate in this. So whatever questions you have, you can ask those questions, and we can also discuss about the tasks which possibly where you are stuck while implementing something which I have given on the last day as an exercise. So that also we resolve on the doubt clearing sessions. Thank you. We appreciate the feedback, and this will help us improve in delivering qualitative trainings further. So by this we come to the end of our demo. So if you feel that yes, you want to take this training, please contact MindMajix and we can discuss about the slots and everything. Thank you very much.